Welcome back to another episode of the Global Stewardship Podcast, where each week I record an episode with a different farmer or food system leader to talk about all things food and farming. And this week I decided to bump up an episode that I recorded a while back with my friend Jack. I've actually been sick for several days now and recorded this episode in hopes of it being kind of my default in case something happened episode. And so here we are. I'm sick in bed recording this intro with no mic. I'm just going to play this one for you guys this week. It wasn't my original plan, but things happen. It's such a bummer to be sick during the summertime. I feel like I'm normally only sick in winter, if that. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Jack. He is Jack's Patch on Instagram, and although I've never actually met Jack in person, we've been online acquaintances for years and years now, so this was a really fun conversation and good time to catch up. He was a market gardener like I am, but he is now gardening for different people all across the United Kingdom and doing some exciting projects that I think we could be inspired by and possibly implement all over the world. I hope you all have a fantastic week, and I plan to catch you again next Tuesday. Hopefully I'll be feeling so much better, especially because between now and then I have 4 podcast recording episodes lined up with people from Uganda, Malawi, several different countries, and so I really want to be on my A game to talk to those people and then get to share those conversations with you. Thank you for faithfully listening to the Global Stewardship Podcast every single week. Here is my episode with Jack. We're just going to jump right in. Would you tell us a little bit about how your whole journey with growing and farming, where that all began?
Yeah, sure. Actually, similar to yourself, traveling quite a lot. I see you're here, there, and everywhere, and it looks great. And traveling with a kid, which is must be hard, but a lot of fun as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2013, I started my trip to Australia on a work travel visa. We get like a 1 year visa that can be extended by doing 88 days agricultural work in Oz. And 99% of the farms sound awful that you have to work on, or did like 10 or so years ago. And it's like a moment in my life where fate came into play and completely changed the direction of my life. It's because after a couple of months there, I was sitting in the backpackers, drinking like every Brit does midday because we're backpacking and we're just enjoying life. And a farmer came into the hostel, and the hostel manager looked at us after their conversation, was like, you're going to be 8 a.m. You're going to be up. You got to be working with this guy on his farm tomorrow.
Oh,
And we
wow.
was like, oh, okay, cool. Finish this beer and then like get ready for the next day. And yeah, we got picked up in the morning and taken to this farm, which was middle of the east coast of Australia, so a place called Yamba. It's ecologically beautiful. It seems to be the most medium point of temperature as well. It has like a cool winter, but a beautifully hot summer, not too humid.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just a real nice spot, like near Byron Bay. If any of the listeners know where that is, this real beautiful spot of
Yeah, that
Australia.
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's so nice. But what was different about it, as we was working, we was just going around the farm and seeing like the chickens were completely loose all day. They were eating food scraps. We saw the ducks um, by these banana trees, and what we realized was that the sink inside the house, the water was being flushed out, so the grey water was going towards the banana, and then the ducks would just be in it all day. There was cows on the farm grazing. The gardens were just so abundant. It's like nothing I'd ever seen before. But we were given a machete and a lighter and told to go into the woods. And there was contours going through the woodland, and you could kind of see them, but it was just taken over by lantana, which is like a vine that kills the trees. So we was
Mm-hmm.
just told to chop and drop and create mini fires to burn it. And then we created a lemon and lime orchard going through the woodland,
Oh, cool.
which was really cool. And so all the time stuff was going in. Not a farming background at all. Worked in a city as an electrician for my whole life. So this was completely new experience to me. So at dinner, he told us to go pick stuff from the farm. Then we cooked. Never seen eggs orange in my life, like so bright orange.
I had the same experience too when I started farming.
Yeah, so for me, it was going from city and especially UK, we've got a real bad rep for our food here being like really bland and boring. And I
Mhm.
kind of grew up on that being just more sustenance rather than like food should be an experience like the Italians and the French and most of the world have. Yeah, and that just fascinated me. Eggs were orange. And then I think we made an omelet because I was like going through it, going, oh my God, what is that? Why does that taste like that? Why does that taste like that? But it was the tomato of biting it, getting the burst of flavor, being like, wow, that it just changed my mind. It was like a light bulb moment
Yeah.
where I was just, yeah, from that point onwards, like, what are you doing to this food? And then, yeah, he just was like, oh, I'm a permaculture designer and a soil scientist. So then just really plucking his brains every lunchtime. He certified all the islands around Fiji and Samoa. So he flew planes to each island, teaching them about food growing and improving the soil. So he had so many stories. And I just started to work there, done my 88 days, which gave me a second year in Oz. But then it was a whole shift of me with like my um, decisions at the supermarket or going to the farmer's market or buying off
Mhm.
him directly. So it just pivoted my direction. But also, I've had three big epiphany moments in my life since then, and they're all while shoveling manure. So there,
No
it's all like
way.
yeah. So it's all like it's like a meditation for us growers, isn't it? Where we're just doing a mundane job, and then you have a light bulb moment. But there, it was like I
That's
was
awesome.
shoveling manure in like 40-degree heat. For you guys, it's like plus 100
Wow.
Fahrenheit, and yeah, it wasn't fun at all. But that meditation of just doing it, sweating, and it was almost like hot yoga or something. But yeah, just going to the garden and just having like a light bulb moment, like I actually love this and I want to do it for the rest of my life.
That's so funny because you were shoveling manure in extremely hot temperatures and you're like, I love this.
Yeah, it was just
That's
like there was
great.
something about it, just being outdoors, natural, you're eating well, living well, being outdoors, hard work. I was already in a labor job, but working indoors and kind of
Mhm.
industrial and dusty to like that. There was something about it. It just tapped in the like the playfulness of being a kid. So
Yeah.
getting your hands dirty, right, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, really, really cool. So went from Australia back to the UK, and at 25, I'd grown my hair long, being like surfing all the time and living on a farm, and I just instantly got called a hippie by my friends. But I got an allotment, which is a community garden in the UK,
Yeah.
at 25, and I just traded going to the pub, seeing my friends, to shoveling manure and growing vegetables um, on the
I love
weekend.
it.
And then, yeah, went from there. Someone saw me riding a bike, picking up compost from local cafes and coffee waste. And that same person, the grandma had land, was like, you need to meet my nan. She'll love you. And then within the same day, I got given quarter of an acre to just look
Wow.
after, grow, do my thing, grow veg as long as she got a veg box each week.
Oh
So
my
yeah, it
goodness.
went the progression within just it was like 2 or 3 years, went from Australia to then owning renting a farm, similar
Right.
to you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah, I
very
still don't own
similar.
any land.
Yeah, and it worked. It seemed to be like
Yeah.
there's people there with land, but and there's people there that want to grow, and it's just like there needs to be a merging of the both because
Yeah.
like people can't really afford to buy the land, but then there's people with land doing nothing with it.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
especially like somebody's nan, an older lady,
mhm.
for sure.
She had 64 acres and it was
Wow.
most of it was undeveloped or unused. So like me taking over an old horse paddock that was just long grass, it just made sense for me to be there and do what I was doing. So yeah, I just quit my job and done like seeing YouTube videos of like back in the day it was Curtis Stone, Jean-Martin Fortier. There's quite a few people that I think me and you both probably aligned and was following, same
Mm.
as the listeners, and it just really spoke to me just the whole how you can turn an urban space into a productive farm and grow food and yeah, I think that that wasn't really happening anywhere here. So to then build it and be that person in my community, I started to find out about restaurants I'd never heard of, people doing really cool projects, and yeah, just build it and they'll come. And that's
Yeah,
how that kind of happened.
that's amazing. You mentioned the allotment system where you started out. I know a lot of people are not familiar with that at all, can you just briefly talk about that before we dive into your whole farming journey? Just so people have kind of a foundation for what gardening even looks like in England and the opportunities that are out there.
So here we're so lucky that I think post World War II there was a whole dig for victory movement. So people were, if they weren't like grown in their back gardens, allotment style, to provide for the family and the like pretty much the street.
Hmm.
There's local community patches that are divided up into individual spaces that you can. I mean, there's some that are private, which are a monthly cost, but the council or what do you guys call it? The municipality? What is it called?
Yeah, municipality.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
just
So
say like our local government.
that's it, right? So
Hmm.
split up into like it's like £23, which is like what, like $30 for a whole year to rent, which is insane, insanely cheap. And you've
That
got
is so
land.
cheap.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's still great system.
Wow.
There's free manure, free wood chip. There's water
What?
butts everywhere that's being fed from like local water system, and yeah, you get to do what you want. But there's like some constraints, but I think there's even old laws that people kind of push the boundaries that you're even allowed chickens and goats on them, but they're
Mhm.
not really big enough. But there's just laws that have never been changed, which is kind of funny. But yeah, you can completely be almost self-sufficient for yourself or a small family because they're kind of large depending on where you go.
Right.
And it's just so, I just can't believe that access to land is there in a small way. But it just is something that we do, which not a lot of the world have.
Hmm.
Um, I don't. It's not in America, right? Something like
Not, yeah, not really, no. But I did go to Spain this past winter and a little bit in the spring and saw a lot of people are doing kind of private allotment gardens like you were mentioning, but I mean, people can charge as much as they want when people don't have land, and so it's really unique that it was a government kind of ordeal. Yeah, super beautiful. And I have been wanting to have an allotment grower on the podcast. And so was just really excited that you had mentioned that because I think it is something that we could implement all over the globe. And
mm,
in Spain, some of the few that I passed, they would be under interstate passes. So in between where two roads cross, the little triangle of land, instead of
wow.
it just being weeds and grass, it'd be like 13 different squares that people could grow for their family. I saw some really crazy things. I'll have to post like footage of them on socials when I put this podcast out, but just like why not utilize the land, especially if it's just getting mowed over? Like it's not even wildflowers or native grasses. Like you might as well use it for nourishing the people in your community. Just seems like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, some of them here are like so old, 100+ years old, maybe way before that. Yeah,
Wow.
there's one in Nottingham in the middle of the UK, which is really famous because it's so vast.
Hmm.
And it takes a while to be on the waiting list to get a spot because they're so developed, like
Yeah.
hedgerows, even to split each individual plot. And I know a girl, she like has like a brick um, potting shed slash greenhouse. It's massive. She put a skate ramp on it. That's how big it was, like a half pipe.
Wow. Yeah,
She built a
that's
half
so
pipe.
cool.
Yeah, it's insane. But there's I will recommend some people that you should talk to as well. Where there's
Yeah.
a friend of mine, and we just done a job together that we built bespoke allotments for like a housing development. But he's got like a allotment company now. So yeah, that is private, but they're taking over huge plots of land in the UK, and because the waiting list is so long for the local government ones, they're taking up land and then making it accessible for people. So they give you everything: seeds, tools, the soil, wood chip, like knowledge,
Wow.
workshops. It's become real community. What it does, it accesses community where there isn't any. And
Mhm.
people like that's like all they have sometimes is their allotment space or to because even here when you go through the gates, people won't talk to each other on the street, won't even say hello where I'm from because it's still
Yes.
like work, 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 and don't even speak to their neighbor. But the minute you go through a doors of an allotment, you can't get away. Half the time you're not growing food, you're just chatting. That's
I
great.
That's what we've been building. We're now a cooperative farm, so have a ton of different farm businesses on the same property. And literally, I'm telling you, every single day I have to budget an extra hour of my day just for chit chat with everybody. And it's crazy. You get back in your car and get on the road, and you're like, man, nobody else is going to talk to me today out in public. But you get to the farm, and it's just anything and everything under the sun is up for grabs for conversation. It's really. It just, I don't know if it's the nature thing or just like-minded people, but it really shows how powerful working with the land is for just
Uh,
mental health and for community for sure.
yeah, well, definitely working with soil is great for your mental health, seeing bees, birds, butterflies, and I think when you're in this space, it's like you geek out, right? So it
Yeah,
doesn't matter what age group you are.
true.
Um, yeah, it definitely changed my life. I mean, what I talk about now to what I talked about when I was 23 is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does definitely change. But yeah, it's great, and I think it definitely heals people in many ways. So that community aspect of it, I think, is a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. So when you had your farm on this woman's property, can you tell us how it went and then why you stopped?
So it was from 2018, like December. But prior to that, I went to a permaculture course in Costa Rica. So it was like an edible food forest in the middle of the jungle, which I spent a
Mhm.
month off grid, which was great. But then there was just like this kind of yin yang of that was subtropical. And even though I was learning about temperate, I needed to learn a bit more about temperate climate. So I done Charles Dowding's no dig course here. He's almost like the David Attenborough of the gardening world in the UK.
Yeah.
He's like a real father figure here that everyone uses no dig. It's like it's quite a big following here. And went to his course in December, and he was still producing so many, like so much food in the depth of winter here. So super inspiring, but also the questions that need to be answered of like, when can I start? And he was just like, start right now. Like winter is the best time to start a garden. I don't know why at the time I was like, I've got to wait till spring. And it was just those little push me moments to be like, this is how you do it. And the no dig is the kind of setup I took for the market garden, and just the layout of it was kind of mix of like how he does it with his width of beds, but also how I feel like Jean-Martin Fortier does it with the 30-inch beds, because it's
Mhm.
like similar to the tool sizes, like the rakes and the broad forks. And it was just a bit of a mix and match of stuff I'd seen on YouTube and what I'd learned on the courses. So yeah, it was a like great first year, no dig straight away. I actually had goats and alpacas come in. It was like rent a goat, where they came in, ate
Wow.
all the um, like any brambles, any thistle. The grass looked like it was like golf course lawn afterwards. It was great, and then I just started to implement no dig from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of hard work on my own because my social media was like in had like a few thousand followers, like 8,000, 9,000 at the time, but it was still really hard to get people to like volunteer to maybe help. But the minute it was done, veg was in the ground and looked abundant. I had like messages on Instagram like, when can I help and visit?
Nice.
But sometimes you gotta like do the hard work on your
Right.
own. But what I like about a garden is like it's the blank canvas, like we're the kind of like artist, and nature gives us all the tools, and then you paint a
Mhm.
beautiful picture, but that's doing all the hard work. So it was really cool to see it come to life. Then working with chefs and doing local veg boxes. And then I've done that for about 4 years. And as you know, like it's a lot of hard work,
Mhm.
and then you start finding what works, what doesn't work. You find niches as well, and I think that's such an important thing for anyone starting, is like find your local niche. So whether
Yeah.
that's like, at first I was growing things that probably did I was growing too many colors of certain things, and people
Right.
didn't recognize what it was at the farmers market. Like people were buying chard thinking it was rhubarb. People
I did the same thing, so.
Yeah, people like, these are the biggest like radish I've ever seen, but they were beetroots, but just different colors. So yeah, it was just trying to get people to, or like for example, like I was growing mushrooms, and they were like, can you eat that? I was like, well, not selling it for you to get
Yeah.
poisoned. It
What
was,
do what do you think?
yeah, I know. Oh, they were like, oh, what mushrooms are you selling under the table? Like silly questions like that. But
Yeah, buy
yeah,
them and find out.
yeah, pretty much. But it was just trying to like work. Like I think the first 2 years is finding that out, and then you've just got to be a little bit like more streamlined. Start speaking with the chefs what they want, speaking with customers, growing what they recognize, but then add in certain things that they don't that have like a higher value. So like come again, start to work with kale and salad and celery because they've got a higher value, but you're going to keep them in the ground more over
Mhm.
stuff like kohlrabi or brassicas. That's like cut once and it's, everything wants to eat it.
Yeah.
So you're fighting the pests. But yeah, I started to find little things like courgette flowers were really big with my chefs, different colored tomatoes. Edible flowers was a big thing. Just they were growing everywhere abundantly and as a companion plant, but used to sell them at a higher price. And then for me, it was mushrooms and microgreens, which is great because I turned a 20-foot shipping container during
Yeah.
COVID into a microgreen mushroom growtainer, and within 20 foot by 8 foot, I grew tons of mushrooms and tons of microgreens.
Wow, that's amazing. So much how prolific that tiny little space can be. I mean, it's not tiny for you guys, but for a lot of the farmers listening, I mean, they're working with hundreds and hundreds of, if not tens of thousands of acres. And so it's always really fascinating to have these conversations with larger scale farmers because they don't realize exactly how much and how bountiful a small space can be when you're growing super tight spacing and interplanting with companion plants, and it's really profitable and it's super environmentally friendly.
I think because we're focusing on every square foot or square meter more, so we're densely packing it. There's more biodiversity, not just above ground, but in the roots as well. So there's that like kind of mimicking forest conditions on a micro scale. So I think for smaller growers, they can grow like such an abundance, and people don't think if you're in our position, you see it, but then on a bigger scale, you're just trying to. It's like volume, isn't it? Right.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think it's kind of cool because here a lot of farmers are having to break up their land due to not getting the check from being in the EU anymore. So they're thinking
Right.
diversifying their farms. So whether that's Airbnb or camping or bringing more market gardeners onto the land to like, so 1 acre is being run by them, 1 acre is being run by someone else, 1 acre is maybe like dairy or whatever. So it's like being a bit
Yeah.
more clever, which is kind of a bad situation. Solutions are coming out of a problem there.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm always pro market gardening here, and permaculture is big for me. So I'm always mixing the two. And I think one of my next projects, because now I don't have the farm, is going back to building a market garden on a wellness hotel.
Yeah. So why did you stop farming that space? Was there a big pivotal moment that happened? Do you want to share about it?
Yeah, sure. So it's like a situation of one door closes, many open. And at the time, I was like stressed about it, but there was my farm used to be running quite near a road. That's one of the biggest roads that circles London, and they wanted to develop it. They were like, "We want to extend the road." So
Yeah.
the lady kind of gave me a heads up, saying, "I've been given a notice that I have a compulsory purchase of land, and that I don't know when it is. Could be like now, it could be 5 years time, but I'd suggest you start thinking out of moving because it could be like next year, and you could be midway through a season, and they come through with bulldozers and just destroy the
Right.
land." So I was like, as gutted as I was, I just made that decision of packing up the farm, and then at the same time, people asking me more. I like what you're doing, but can you do it for me? So it's
Yeah.
like whether it's a back garden or a cafe. And so there was just like a pivotal point of like, well, this door's closing, but something else is coming through. So yeah, I just pivoted and started going down the road of doing permaculture design or like urban space design for people's back gardens or rooftops or their commercial businesses.
Can you explain what your working definition of permaculture is?
it's such an umbrella term, isn't it?
Right.
Because of
That's why I'm asking.
it's really like it's hard to put the finger on the pulse, but so there's a few things. It's working with nature, like alongside it holistically. So instead of being like a pyramid where humans are the top, we're a spider web where we're a part of it. So we have as much
Right.
a part of the system as a bee and a worm, but we also need to look at people being the solution and not the problem all the time because it's easy for us to destroy space, but people power, like what we could do with a lot of people, tools, soil, plants. Within a week, we could create a garden or we can create a wildflower meadow. We have the ability to destroy, but also create super quick, more so than nature. So we can
Yeah.
implement really quickly.
Yeah,
Um,
we can, if with our help, the earth can heal a lot faster.
yeah, and we have the solutions. We just have idiots in charge that just block us from doing it.
Yeah.
And yeah, just the power's in the wrong hands currently, but it shouldn't make you powerless because this knowledge
Mhm.
is there and we can start. Like I always say, even with like a flower, if you've planted a flower and a bee lands on it, then you've changed the course of that bee's life because it's now got pollen to go to the next flower or enough energy to go back to the hive. It's like
Right.
these small decisions make like a super ripple effect. So if you like concentrate on like the macro, the micro, it has effect on the macro.
Hmm.
But yeah, so permaculture. So I went tangent, went off skis there. It's like working with nature, being a part of the system. But I like the output over input solutions of how maybe two things can work as one. So even like the placement of a pond on the north side of a greenhouse, so the south sun bounces off the pond to heat the greenhouse in the winter or having chickens in like a polytunnel in the winter that warms it up through the body heat for
Hmm.
crops.
Yeah.
Little things like that I just find so fascinating. I love the off-grid style of it. And I'll give you two examples from Costa Rica where this food forest was 90% edible, if not medicinal. For example, after a few days of being there, they were like, oh, by the way, check out the path you've been walking on. And it kind of just looked like a small like webbing, like a shoot, but it was interlocking like a grass. We went like this, boom, and it was peanuts. So we was like walking on food as well. So that's what
Yeah.
I enjoyed the Willy Wonka style of growing food, and I kind of have that as my approach now of just put food everywhere, even if you.
Everywhere. I'm in that same boat right now too, and it's very life-giving.
And I think it's like really good to give people that vision as well, like whether you're speaking to other farmers or clients or just people in general to inspire like this podcast where you could be like just grow food like anywhere everywhere and depending on the crops as long as you've got soil and a little bit of space and a little bit of heat and a little bit of water like you can grow some stuff anywhere.
Yeah.
You could turn a car park into a farm with raised beds and vertical systems. All really like the possibilities are endless with this. And I guess you see a lot, right, when you're traveling from
Hmm.
farm to farm. So you're seeing many ideas as well, bringing them back
Yeah.
home.
One thing that I've actually been really discouraged by is kind of in this modern gardening, new homesteading movement. Everybody has to have the perfect looking raised beds and the perfect systems. And I find that those actually can be really limiting. And like you said, it can happen anywhere. We don't need to spend all of this money to grow food. I think that I call it big gardening. The big gardening organizations and companies, they want you to think that you have to have all of these things and you have to have it in the perfect 4x4 raised bed. And you literally can just grow food anywhere. Just like you said, just cut the grass low and put it in your yards.
Yeah.
It's so simple. And so yeah, that's what we're trying to do. And I love going all over the world because people are doing it everywhere and it's just it's like this whole movement is catching fire and spreading and thank God. Like, praise the Lord that people are, doing this more and more and more because it's it's a shame we kind of lost it there for a couple generations and I have so much hope that more and more people are coming back to growing their own food and in a way that's sustainable and really going to nourish the planet.
I think so. It feels like there's such a wave and energy about this. Like even the 10 years since I was on the farm, like even when I was looking at YouTube back in 2015 when I come home, it just seems such a limited amount of YouTube channels talking about food growing, and I couldn't find much, but I found some that inspired me. But now it's like Instagram is, I suppose it's our world of Instagram, right? The algorithm for
Yeah,
us,
that's so
but
true.
it just seems a lot. It seems like it's just exploded, and there's just many people doing lots of cool things. And even going back to like growing food anywhere, is like I started to grow in like Tetra Pak containers to like cut out my like carton of, I think it was like just like plant milk or whatever, and then
Yeah.
got them from cafes, filled them with soil, and then just yeah, microgreens. So 7 to 10 days of growth, and anyone can do that. So I teach kids at workshops how to do it, but I teach kids exactly the same way I teach adults, and because it's like so easy, is literally soil, seeds on top, a bit of weight on top of that. The seeds push on the weight, so they grow really strong roots. So they force down first, and then you get a nice carpet of seeds with literally spraying a bit of water on them, and it's like some of the most nutrient dense food you can grow in,
It
because
is,
all that
yeah.
energy is packed in that seed. It's crazy. It's so, and it's so simple. Like for me it took a while to like realize how simple certain things were, like even growing mushrooms. I thought you needed all the equipment like Heisenberg from Breaking Bad, like hazmat suit, and
Yeah,
everything had to be clean and sterile, which it does in with like lion's mane, etc.
right.
But oyster mushrooms will grow on a pair of jeans or a book if you leave
Yeah,
it with the mycelium. It
that's so great.
is just wants to live. So yeah, a little bit of straw and the right mycelium in a bucket. I mean, yeah, it goes for it. In about 3 weeks, you can have your own oyster mushrooms.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure if anybody's listening who isn't a farmer who doesn't grow, but I always tell people, if you don't garden yet, you literally can start indoors. You can start in your windowsill, or whether you're in the UK and there's allotment systems, or you're somewhere like here, like find a farmer like me that is hosting families and beginning farmers. I mean, we're looking for all kinds of people to join our team, and I know that there's farmers all over the states, all over the world who would love to partner with people. So, the lack of land doesn't have to be a limiting thing. And kind of on that topic, so the road was going to go through your farm.
Yeah.
What were all of these new opportunities that were kind of falling on your doorstep, and what has that become now?
Well, definitely the beauty of social media. So posting about what you do, because at the end of the day, you're like, if you're a grower, like you're inspiring people what to do. You're like your own brand. If you want to start selling it, you're marketing. But so I was always about document over create, so just documenting the process of the farm, and I think people just enjoyed that. A lot of people used to message me because I'm not a typical farmer. I didn't come from a farming background, so
Hmm.
where I live there ain't many farms. I'm from like a part of the world in the UK, which is kind of a little bit materialistic, a little bit. There's even a show about where we live, and like it's kind of like Real Housewives or Jersey Shore or whatever.
What's the show called?
It's called The Only Way Is Essex.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, it's reality TV. But it's kind of funny because not a lot of people do what I do here. So it was always like
Yeah.
a break the mold sort of thing. So obviously I'm doing something a little bit different, and people find it cool and they can relate to me because of where I'm from. So they were just reaching out and going, whether it was just like a little bit of advice from the garden space or taking pictures of plants going, what's happening. But then one or two people was like, Jack, do you actually build the gardens as well? And at first, I was like, you know what? I like farming is full on, but then there was times where I just had a few weekends where I was like, I could go and help you out. And it started with just setting up some raised beds for people, telling them what soil to get, and then I would go to like wholesalers and get plants, or I had extra plants grown over. And it got to
Mhm.
a point where then I was going to a cafe and they had space at the front and they were doing it but really poorly. And then I just said, yeah, I'll do it for you. So it went from my old background of being an electrician, so I've got all the tools for doing construction. And then I just started building a like raised beds, start with raised beds, and then it got into someone asked me to do a pond to add more wildlife to their garden. And it just
Yeah.
started to snowball from there. You do one, you post about it, you do another, you post about it. And then it was a pub that within the car park, they had about 3 meters from a tree line from where the cars stop in the car park to a fence of someone else's garden. It was just a strip of weeds on a terrace,
Wow.
on a hill. And then I just terraced it with some raised beds, and now it's like a meter of grow space over about 39 meters. And I just done a edible food forest. So started with fruit trees as the top canopy, down to soft fruit, herbs, ground cover, vines, and they
Wow.
were just, yeah. So anything the pub wanted, I had a list, and then I added stuff like comfrey, so like a mulch, like a
Hmm.
chop and drop to help aid the plants. But then I started to, it was adding like rosemary, thyme, sage, lemon balm, mint, soft fruit, like raspberries,
Yeah.
anything the pub wanted. And then they started being really niche. So certain edible flowers, edible leaves like lemon verbena or oxalis. And now it's a really abundant, now it's year 3. The fruit is coming through quite hot. So lots of pears, lots of apples. And it's just so cool to see. And you can't even see it from the car park. No one knows it's there. Yet there's an edible food forest at a pub. And now the chefs go out there daily. And I've got
Wow.
videos of them going out, just taking little fronds of fennel, sage leaves, rosemary, and they just don't have to pay for that. It's now
Yeah.
farmed
Well,
like
and they brought life to that little piece of land too, that,
totally. Yeah, there's
right.
bees, hoverflies. Every time I'm there, there's something going on. But yeah, it's just that whole like farm to plate within literally
Mhm.
10 meters to the kitchen. And I'm a big fan of that. So if any cafe, restaurant has even like the smallest space to having like a part of a car park or a little bit of land out the back, which a lot of pub gardens here, even just having like whiskey barrels with loads of plants in or like loads of herbs, right?
Yeah.
And the chef can go out there, and I think people pick up on that. If they see the chef going out to just cut a little bit of rosemary, it just adds that intention and that consciousness around the meal a little bit
Hmm.
more. So I'm a
Definitely.
big
I
fan
love
of that,
it.
and I'll push that all the time. So,
Yeah, that's so cool. What a
mm,
cool project. Do you have any other examples of really cool, inspiring projects like that that people could think about implementing other places around the world?
rooftop gardens in cities. So if there's like maybe a restaurant downstairs, that it's like that insulated layer at the top. So it's like a heat trap. It's a stormwater trap. It's um, yeah, it's just like a haven up there, like that square footage on top of a restaurant maybe in a city, or for example, we've done a indoor grow for a cafe growing mushrooms. So the cafe had mushrooms growing in it, literally in the size of like it's just a hydroponic tent. They can control the conditions of
Right.
bringing oxygen in and taking the carbon dioxide out through like vents. But they were growing 8 kilos of oyster mushrooms a week in the size of like an IKEA tent or something you could buy at
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of an American equivalent of a furniture shop, but
Yeah.
something that's like 6 foot by 1 foot deep, and they were growing tons of mushrooms or
Wow.
microgreens. Grow a lot of food in a small space. So I think it's just seeing how chefs can have that relationship with the food, and it even being grown within the restaurant or just outside. It creates a harmony. Because that's one thing I noticed here is the chefs go, we're farm to table, but they know where the meat comes from and they know where the fish comes from, but they still ring a wholesalers here for their veg, which I just find
Yes.
so detached.
It's the same here where I live too. It can be harder with vegetables because they need such a quantity that's not always grown super locally. And maybe they're using things, that are out of season. And so steps like this, I think chefs and restaurant owners start to become more aware of what's on their menu and how local it really is. And I think slow steps like having even just a small garden where they get some things. Usually, once a restaurant implements that, what follows is supporting local farmers, and it's a mindset shift that comes with it over time. And so I definitely agree that that's a super impactful thing, transforming people's mindsets and giving them even the outlet to just have that intimate relationship with where their food comes from that they don't get to have, even if it's just seeing the chef pick some rosemary at a dinner at the restaurant. It's something that a lot of people are still missing from their lives and don't even realize it.
Definitely. I think it's something, especially in the US and the UK, is like maybe our food culture is inspired by a lot of other countries, and but our original food, what we're like known for,
Hmm.
food culture is pretty not the best food, right? So having an experience with fresh food for me is it was life changing. It really gave
Right.
me the passion to be like, you need to try this. You need to have farm fresh food. You need to come to this restaurant because they've got maybe a radius around the restaurant where they only buy from those suppliers. But there was even restaurants when I was supplying them where I would do a talk before the dinner because maybe 80% of the menu is from my farm, but it was like small covers, so maybe just 20 people in there. And it
Yeah.
just created that bond of, oh, this guy
Yeah.
grew the beetroot we're eating, and but why is the beetroot golden and not purple and boiled? It's actually had got like some real nice flavor and earthiness. Or,
Mhm.
yeah, I just find that really exciting. And the whole movement of more people not being farmers, getting into farming is cool as well, like kind of breaking the mold of dogma of it has to be done this way. It's more like,
Yeah.
oh no, there's a whole new wave of how to do it differently is very interesting as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What kind of projects do you have lined up in the future or anything that you're working on that you're really excited about?
Yeah, so the next big project I've got is a wellness, I think it's a, would they would describe themselves as a wellness hotel where it's an old manor house that's being converted into an area that will have rooms that are even so the beds are like they've like it's all about the sleep is important, so they've got like the best mattresses
Interesting.
in the world. There's got ground wire in them. Even the water is like coherent, so it's like mother water. I'm not sure if a lot of people would have heard of that, but yeah, because tap water here is obviously not the best, so they're just trying to get like, the best water possible. But then that also helps in the garden to have good clean water that has the good minerals in, and less chlorine. They're going to have huge saunas, gyms, Pilates. We've got 55 acres of forest that can be has loads of foraging opportunities, but also sound baths, like forest bathing, all the
Hmm.
things that like people are trying to connect to. That's like very primitive for us
Yeah.
as humans. We kind of like got to go back to square one because the world and our environment's got so hectic that we
Hmm.
almost need a reset.
Yeah, that
But
definitely sounds like a great place to reset.
yeah, it's in a beautiful part of the UK in the South Downs, and lots of wildlife, very natural, very kind of similar to you know. I recently saw that you well, was it last year using the Lakes
But
District
yeah,
here?
in March, all of March
Oh wow, okay, so
was
that's
amazing.
actually I was there. I think March or April, and it's just the
Yeah.
most stunning like part, one of the most stunning parts of the UK. But there's a lot of the UK that looks like that as well. So yeah, just very how you would imagine the UK.
Yeah.
Very,
Well,
very
that's funny
beautiful.
that you say that because for Americans, I learned really quickly that Americans don't imagine the UK like that. We just think London for the most part. We see, I took a poll on social media and everybody's like, we just visualize the flag and the Queen and London, like Big Ben, and that's about it. I was just totally, my whole like vision of England and the UK was transformed by going to the northern part and experiencing the lakes and just driving all around. I mean, just road trip after road trip. some of the
It's
most
very Lord. It's kind
beautiful.
of Lord of the Rings, isn't it? A little bit like that. A little
Totally.
bit like how you imagine Hogwarts and like kind of that stereotypical England. It's more,
Mm,
and what I think I saw is some of your posts where like you
it's
can walk
amazing.
through fields where just sheep are just chilling, but that is the way you've got to go.
Oh
And
yeah, everywhere.
you're walking past people's animals, and they just don't care. They run away a little bit, but some of the animals, like the cows, come
Yeah.
up to you, you can stroke them, but it feels so unnatural. Like, am I going to get charged here, or
Yeah.
are they going to be
Well,
cool?
in the US, it's like in some states, the landowner would come at you for being on their property near their animals. So it was really crazy to it's culturally normal and it's part of your heritage to have the rights to just walk up and over the fencing and into
Yeah.
these fields and just trek through for miles and miles and camp. And it's just like, what is this place? It was magical.
Yeah, it is, and I think it's just like same with a hotel where that is just beautiful castles around, and there's old. What I noticed as well driving around there is these old practices of like coppicing and natural hedges. Have you seen where they
Yeah,
it's called hedge pleaching. That so they
right.
kind of cut 80% of the hedge to lay it, and then they like weave it, so it actually creates longevity for the hedge and
Yes.
keeps it more intact. And I just think people need to see those old traditions. They're starting to come back as well slowly here, where people are like
Yeah.
willow weaving or weaving hazel to create fences or structures or living fences. And I find that so fascinating as a craft and as a
Hmm.
skill that we need to be going back to. So we're working with our hands again, rather than I know like the phone is like one of those things it's come into our world, but we need to have a balance of like that
Yes.
and that because we can't escape it really. But yeah, just going back to the hotel, like I'm there to implement a farm. They want to make it biodynamic if possible. So we're gonna like work with like biodynamic practices, and I'm gonna implement as much permaculture as possible. Talking about the input output, so hopefully the chickens can have some time in a polytunnel in winter, as well as the crops being grown at the same time. So they'll be in a coop in there, and maybe a run to the compost heap so they can scratch and
Hmm.
turn the compost. But yeah, just trying to make everything dense. I've got maybe over a quarter of an acre there, a slightly bigger area. So I want to make it so productive that people can eat there. We can have lavender that can be dried and put on their pillows in the hotels so they have better
Nice.
sleep, and probably push the whole sensory experience like smell, taste, touch, and create teas. So all the teas will be like mint, chamomile, lemon verbena, et cetera, et cetera. But that's my idea. Is it like when you step into the farm, you're stepping into another world of food,
Yeah.
but sensory experience.
Yeah.
But this is
I
sort of
can.
things that come with time of learning about growing, right? You start to
Mhm.
go down more rabbit holes of things that find tickle your interest, and each year I'll go down a different rabbit hole, whether it's edible flowers or mushrooms or microgreens or trees or whatever. I think
Yeah.
this is a fascinating job to have because you're always learning.
Yeah, it's also fascinating because you can kind of just jump on other people's ideas too. Like they say, "Hey, I've got this little piece of land and I'd love to see it in production or I'd love to see it brought to life." And you're like, "Okay, well, this is what this is what I'm on about right now." Kind of get to experiment at different places and build something that will serve a lot of different people. I really love this phase of life that you're in right now, like just watching from afar because doing work like that benefits so many different people in different areas and in a way that having just a stationary farm like may not always.
I
And so I
agree.
think it's really unique.
Yeah, I feel like now instead of just having that corner to like that's great for pollinators, and it was also creating food for like local community. I feel now I'm having more of an effect by them being like because it's not located just where I live, it's around the country. So it's having that like ripple effect everywhere, and just having your stamp, but then also saying like leaving it knowing that's either potentially getting better or more people are seeing it, more people are interacting with that space. Because some of the jobs have even been community spaces where the community come to have like a free lunch from the cafe, but now they're sitting in a garden that's got that
Yeah.
sensory experience, right? Rather than just looking at a brick wall, with a bit of
Nice.
grass, it's now a food growing area, which was something a project I done last year. So I want to inspire people to like look into the field of like not just growing for yourself, but maybe even turning it into a job where you can even start like at a local community center or
Mhm.
working with kids and working at a school if you're a teacher and implementing a small garden, because
Yeah.
I think there's a new phase of jobs as well where like we need more growers in commercial spaces and just like having that implement of change. Like if there's landscapers come in, sometimes they might not be good at the growing. They'll put up the sleeper raised beds, or they'll just put like that fake mulch down, and you think, oh, that could have been something else,
Yeah.
right?
I think that all the time. Like
Yeah,
what a waste of space. Or they were on the right path and then
you're right at
didn't
the end, they just
quite
fell
get
off.
it.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's definitely opportunity there, for sure.
Yeah, well, like you were saying, with your experience in Australia, tasting this just absolutely delicious fresh food and how it's led you to where you are today, I've definitely had similar situations that are the reason I'm here today as well. And by you setting up these different gardens and working with other people who are interested in permaculture, I can't even imagine the amount of people that that will reach who taste that fresh veg, or instead of seeing the brick wall, they see the pollinators, and it's for them, it's that butterfly effect for them that they want to, whatever it may be, but change
It
the outcome of their life.
it for sure. Like just you just reminded me going back to that community project, because there was people coming in every day, and they a lot of them wasn't working. They'd come from like troubled backgrounds, and that place was giving them a free meal and a free coffee to like get them through the day. So some of them were just like, "Can I help?" So they'd volunteer, like putting the compost in the beds, or some lady just come because she just really wanted to get her hands dirty and plant. And she was just like, "What time can I be here tomorrow? I'm really excited." Like she just worked for free,
Yeah.
but I think it gave her purpose that
Hmm.
day, and was and just the comments we could hear from people coming through, they were just sitting there and hanging around longer than they normally would have, because there was actually something to look at and there was something to
Yeah.
interact with. And then I got a comment saying how much the kids went from like at first we used to abuse the space to then respecting the space and
Oh
interacting with
yeah.
it, because like there was like bee
Definitely.
hotels and they were like fascinated by watching this the bees go into the holes and lay their eggs. And yeah, it
That's
just,
amazing to think about.
yeah, right.
Oh my goodness. We don't go out to dinner much, but I went out to a meal last week and looked around the restaurant, and like 90% of the children were on their screens. Like, oh no, is this what's happening out here? Like, holy cow, that's not good. So, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine how just transformative that would be to have that kind of atmosphere in a restaurant, or just wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's simple things, because even in the UK, we used to have like play areas for the kids on the outside, kind of like how like McDonald's used to have that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Same, yeah, same in the US, where it was colorful and at least they were playing and keeping fit and
Hmm.
stuff, right? So it's kind of like that, but in a garden space, whether it's a cafe
Yeah.
space, and they're just like fascinating to look at, like the bees or like wasps, or well, maybe not wasps because they sting, but dragonflies
Yeah,
and
no.
all sorts of things that make kids kind of intrigued and interested.
Hmm.
So there's definitely space for that, and I think if you've got a kid and you might have not been thinking like that, then maybe think like that, because
Hmm.
yeah, there's so much opportunity. Even just drilling a few holes in a bit of wood, you create a habitat.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Like even for example, I've been working with a guy here, and he was saying there was a patch of two patches of wildflowers, one here, one there. The one that had less wildflowers, but there was mounds of sand in between, was doing better because it wasn't just the food, it was the home. So those bees were living in the burrows of the sand, but then
Yeah.
coming out for the flowers. And people were like, it was changing my mind on how to even just leave some spaces bare as well. So there's
Right.
always this stuff we're always learning, but it just
That's
made it
amazing.
fascinated me that now I'm
Yeah.
going down a rabbit hole of bugs, I guess.
No, I do that every day, and It's just funny that you said your friends started calling you a hippie. Everybody said the same, but when you do this and when this is your new life, like your whole mindset changes and the way you see the world changes so much, you know?
Yeah, it hopefully you can inspire your friends as well if they see what you're doing. Even at first,
Yeah.
there's a bit of pushback, but then if you give them eggs or they buy a chili plant and they want advice on how to keep it going, then you're the person in
And
their
they're like,
friend
oh,
group.
this is pretty cool. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I know that everything that you've mentioned will really open people's eyes to the importance of doing this in urban spaces and restaurants. And I just, yeah, I feel like every time I have a conversation with somebody on a podcast, I'm like, oh, I need to go do this. But it really does make me think what all these restaurants in our town that have this space and just have just mulch and no plants and or they just pay a landscaping service to mow their lawn or whatever. They could have just some really incredible things if somebody kind of took initiative and made this happen. And I know that
Mm.
listeners will probably agree. There's always somewhere you can grow. So,
They could be saving money. They could be putting dill or
right?
sage or whatever on the plates.
Yeah,
Saves a few bucks per week.
seriously. Or more, depending.
Mm.
Yeah, it just seems like the current setup is just not, people think, oh, it's convenient to just pay somebody to come and mow it, but I don't know. Not if bringing this whole space to life would bring in the community and help boost your restaurant and make it a thriving farm to table place. To me, that seems
100%.
like a really great option.
I agree.
Very cool.